story begins in 1905, when Alberta was born and the Alberta Conservatives were created from the Northwest Territories Liberal Conservative Party. Their leader was Richard Bennett, the future 11th Prime Minister of Canada. Victory would elude him in 1905, and the Alberta Conservatives would only elect 2 members. Except for some brief hope in 1913 and 1917, it would be decades before the Conservatives would inspire Alberta's voters. In the early 1940s, the federal and provincial Conservatives changed their name to the Progressive Conservatives.
The name change of the Progressive Conservative Party was as a result of John Bracken. And the federal party went to John Bracken and asked him to run for the leadership of the Conservative Party. And he said, I'll do it, but you're going to have to change the name to Progressive Conservative.
The PCs marched on, and once again were looking for a new leader in 1964. Feeling glum but determined, the executive gathered at the Highlander Hotel in Calgary to ponder the party's future.
Saturday night, we had gathered in my room with a little congenial group of half a dozen of us or so. A knock came at the door, and a prominent Calgary oil man came into the room, and he said, I have somebody I want you folks to meet. He's seriously considering running for the leadership of our party. And he brought Peter Lougheed into the room. We were just sort of gobstruck that anybody really wanted to take on the leadership.
The first time I met Peter Lougheed was in the run-up to the convention. He was a very affable, pleasant guy. He had a phenomenal ability to remember names. And he, of course, was the kind of guy, if he's on the ski hill, he'd go around and shake everybody's hands, say, I'm Peter Lougheed.
The 1965 leadership election was held at the McDonald Hotel in Edmonton.
Peter won overwhelmingly on the ballot, and so we had a new leader without a seat in the legislature. And a big challenge facing this young man who had come forward.
On May 23, 1967, Peter Lougheed and 5 other progressive Conservatives were elected and became the official opposition. And then on August 30th, 1971, the Progressive Conservatives won a majority government.
We want the government under the people, not the people under the government.
There were roses and go-go girls. In 1971, the unthinkable happened. The young lawyer and his Progressive Conservatives ended 3 decades of social credit rule.
Peter's first piece of legislation was to introduce the Alberta Bill of Rights. And I think it was an important indication as to how Peter and his government felt about the rights of individual citizens.
Every premier has a vision based on their unique circumstances. Peter Lougheed's was based on what Alberta could be far beyond his life, which is what made him a pretty rare and exceptional leader, I think.
Well, Peter Lougheed always said, in order to be successful, you have to govern from the middle. You cannot govern from an ideologically left or right-wing perspective. And I remember a discussion between Peter and I on that very topic. And I said, but the key thing is, Mr. Premier, is knowing where the middle is.
When we get stuck on ideology, it's because we've given up on ideas. Really, the practical solution to most of our problems is not on the right or on the left. It's with wisdom.
After serving the party and the province for 20 years, Peter Lougheed announced his retirement on June 26, 1985.
Let's keep reaching for the sky. Let's continue to be a party that causes the people not to divide, but to come together in common purpose. That believes, yes, in the...
Don Getty was elected as the PC leader and was sworn in as the 11th Premier of Alberta on November 1st, 1985. He had gone from being a football hero to the peak of political power. And for 7 years, he fought battles on the constitutional and economic fronts.
And Don had a big heart. He was a softie, a wonderful softie. He wasn't, he was shy. He was not comfortable as a glad handler, he was good in one-on-one conversations.
The next leader of the Progressive Conservatives would leave a lasting impression on Alberta politics. Ralph Klein was elected as leader on December 5th, 1992.
I was a co-chair of Mr. Klein's leadership campaign. Well, he had a beautiful appeal. He again was his own man, and he had a deep feeling for the province of Alberta.
Ralph was one of my favorite people. May he be remembered for being a man of the people, a person with a great vision for giving responsibility back to ordinary Albertans.
When the writ was dropped for the 1993 general election, the PCs were behind the Liberals in the polls, but Ralph pulled a miracle out of the bag.
When Ralph came in and accomplished what's called the miracle on the prairies, he came in with the right vision.
Ralph Klein, remember, ran on a promise that he was going to balance the budget, pay down the debt, get government out of the business of being in business.
You know, I've often said the only way taxes are going in this province is down.
Ralph kept his promise. On July 12, 2004, he announced Alberta's debt had been paid in full.
And I still recall when they held up the poster, him and Pat Black, that the province was debt-free. And it was really something that all Albertans at that time saluted.
Ralph never told a lie. He was true to a fault. And there are times where you think, Ralph, couldn't you just keep that one inside and not tell people yet?
Oh, Ralph was very direct. He was a very good listener, and when he formed an opinion, he stated it. And if he wasn't happy, you knew that too. But he was unbelievably supportive of us as MLAs and as ministers.
After Ralph Klein's resignation, Ed Stelmach became leader and the 13th Premier of Alberta.
Ed had a very warm and compassionate way himself. He just made time to look after people, and that was really his mantra.
The election was called for March 3rd, 2008.
Well, I think our numbers were pretty clear in Calgary that we had quite a few seats that were at risk. And we organized a rally. Ed gave a great speech, and the people walked out of there energized and really felt coming out of there that if we buckled down and worked harder, we were going to win seats in Calgary. We were going to win a lot of seats in Calgary, and we did.
In January 2011, Ed Stelmach announced his return to private life. The PCs made an historic choice, and Alison Redford was sworn in as Alberta's first female premier on October 7th, 2011.
I still remember when Alison got elected, and everyone was very impressed by how she handled herself. She seemed like exceedingly cool under pressure and have brilliant responses that really cut to the chase.
It was her vision to set up the Department of Human Services. But it was a vision which understood that all of the pieces of the human condition had to work together to be successful if we were going to strengthen families and communities.
Over the next couple of years, Alberta politics would have more excitement than a political television drama. Even though she had steered the party through a successful election, Alison Redford resigned in March 2014. Jim Prentice became the new leader.
He was just one of those leaders where you felt like you could speak your mind with him and that your opinions were always welcome. And I think that the party was well served by him.
We can dream more than we have dreamt. We can do more than we have done, and we can be more than we have been. This is a province and a party full of honest, strong-willed, and hard-working people. They want straight talk with a lot less politics and a lot more leadership.
Unfortunately, after 44 years in government, Albertans were ready for a change. On May 5th, 2015, the Progressive Conservative reign came to an end.
So I remember exactly the day after the election. It snowed in Edmonton. There was that joke that hell had frozen over. And our critics, but even some of our greatest fans, thought that the party had just run its course. But then something really magical happened. I remember going 2 weeks after the election, there was a meeting in Edmonton of a constituency of presidents. And the room was packed when I got there. And everybody wanted to talk about what's next.
In my mind, there'll always be a progressive conservative party because there will be always a core of Albertans that will believe in the values of being a progressive conservative.
Going back to that 1965 convention where we had no seats, we had no money and no organization, we're going to do this collectively, and it's all about hard work.
My hope for the party in the future is that we will continue to understand that politics is not about power, but it's about responsibility. It's about service.
Lougheed and Getty never used the term power. They always said, we are here to serve Albertans.
Anyone who seeks power probably doesn't deserve it. Serve the public and say what needs to be said, and then power will come or it won't.
People say this was the party that Peter built, or this is the party that Ralph built. But I'll submit to you that I think this is the party that our volunteers built.